In recent years, we've seen the video game industry grow tremendously fast. It has now overtaken Hollywood, and as of last year, its market revenue lies around $137 billion, which is now estimated to hit around $180 billion by 2021. But enough flexing, let's get to what the title suggests. Video games are becoming more and more expensive to develop, and even after all these years of hard working of building, crafting, programming and coding, it's now up to the marketing team to create a campaign to attract as many consumers as possible to the product as possible. What? Video game commercials, unlike its counterparts in the entertainment industry, have constantly evolved into many different variations, because it's a much more trickier process than you would think. Like, how exactly do you confront a bunch of people to play a video game without actually providing them with the feeling of playing it? Sure, you can show gameplay, but the backbone of the game can never really be fully exposed until it's actually released. And one of those variations that is extremely popular today and has been around since the beginning is live action trailers. And as you can probably tell, I have a problem with them sometimes. To put it short, my problem isn't the trailers themselves. I think they offer great entertainment and show the potential these games could have for movie adaptations. My problem is that there's always a certain disconnection between its own depiction and the actual moment-to-moment gameplay or the storyline of the video game that it's marketing. In other words, I feel like live action trailers are often either over-exaggerated or filler. While I understand the stress that the marketing teams probably go through because of the disadvantages I was just talking about, in the case of live action trailers, they tend to go sometimes too far or overboard. There are plenty of exceptions to what I'm talking about, and I want to start off by talking about those. There have been plenty of memorable live action trailers, like God of War Ascension, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, Metro Last Light. What these trailers did was offer more context to the game's lore, characters, or plot that gave new players a better insight on what kind of experience they could expect, rather than having the game have a 5 to 10 minute intro explaining everything to you like you're in a school class. And despite being very new player friendly, they are still able to draw in long-time fans of their franchises, given that they give off great examples to showcase the narrative in a way that the game itself probably didn't have time to flesh out. Mankind Divided depicts this scary situation where the natural humans and the augmented are on the verge of war with one another through media coverage. In Metro Last Light, we witnessed Moscow's final minutes before the nuclear attack while showing off a select few civilians whose lives changed dramatically afterwards, some for better, some for worse. Ascension tells you exactly why Kratos is referred to as the ghost of Sparta, and by having these little mini-stories within these trailers portrayed by real people can make the viewer's experience that much more powerful. The performances by the actors are convincing, the visuals are impressive as hell, the entire video then just feels that much more grounded. And one other franchise that I personally think has constantly been setting the bar for live action trailers that I have to mention before we move on, and that is Halo. Especially Halo 3 and ODST. The Believe campaign for Halo 3 with the action figures and veteran interviews made me feel very anxious, but also very inspired to hear the stories that were being told, and more importantly the events that I would experience within the game itself. Halo 3 ODST follows this one soldier through a timeline narrative that starts at the moment he's inclined to join up, to being in the hellfire of combat. It's almost a surprise to see the amount of shit that these guys go through, when us Halo fans have come to know them as being admittedly worthless, but extremely self-aware.
Hang on to something, I'm not good at driving. Oh, that's a lot of damage!
You don't need to know jack shit about the franchises to come to terms with what's what. There's very little confusion to put up with. Both of these trailers nailed this type of tone that, while no gameplay footage was shown, it was a way of inflaming the viewer's imagination, like providing us with a puzzle and leaving it up to us to piece it together. The only other format of a live action trailer that I don't mind are the ones that make transitions to the actual gameplay, like the original Mortal Kombat where it flashes between gameplay and people running through the streets, or the first Titanfall where a guy is walking downtown with his very own Titan, racking up potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage to the environment. The kind of thing regular people like you and I would cause if we had our own Titan. Now that I've been under the table with a select few live action trailers, it's time to flip the script and, as the title suggests, start talking some shit. So when I actually sat myself down to watch all these types of commercials, I started off each video with the thought of, what do the developers want me to think? Like, what exactly is the intention of the tone? And regarding the trailers I mentioned earlier, they all went for a more emotional mood that had a greater deal of connection to fans of those franchises. And when I go into a live action trailer with that in mind, I end up with the impression that live action trailers are used as more of a spectacle, rather than means of telling you a little story. A few examples could be Shadow of War, Dawn of War 3, Injustice 2, Dishonored 2. These trailers are packed with so much action that it's hard to not get a nerdgasm out of them. I get so lost in them that it makes me almost forget that this is a commercial for a video game. And that's the problem. When you actually push aside the impressive visuals that is shown in the trailer and look at what the final product actually looks like, it just looks out of place. Even The Witcher 3 did something similar, and as much as I love CD Projekt, one of their cinematics was basically Geralt fighting a bunch of level 1s who were beating up a helpless woman. When watching it, I didn't feel like I was supposed to ask questions or speculate on anything, because it's clearly the action sequence that makes this trailer hot. When the second trailer for The Last of Us 2 came out, IGN made a video criticizing it for showcasing violence without context. Now let me finish, because for Sony ponies I'm treading on thin ice. Violence without context is partly the main reason I've taken with some of these trailers I've been mentioning. But in The Last of Us 2, in my opinion, unlike the others I just mentioned, it was necessary. For two reasons. One, given that this was the trailer released in October 2017, and fast forward today, the game still hasn't got a release date, and we've heard very little from it since E3, so obviously they're not going to give us a good rundown on who's who or what's what. Naughty Dog crafted this trailer with the intention to make you speculate it for yourself. Look at it for yourself, have conversation with friends, it's quite likely that you'll have your own fascinating theories, or even better, watch the incredible and totally professional breakdown videos.
Arthur Morgan, our main character. Arthur Morgan, 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 Arthur Morgan.
And two, we were told even before this trailer by Naughty Dog that this will be a story about hate, showing the level of insanity human beings have conditioned themselves to as they fight to survive in this post-apocalyptic setting. While the game's release is still a few years away, rather than shoving words in your face, let's actually just show it to you, face to face. But aside from this one exception, I think that this type of approach just feels catered to the jaded crowd. Don't think about anything, but just appreciate how cool it was to see Geralt absolutely cleaning house, or Flash using his speed abilities to outwit Big Boy Soups. I'm all for you showing off a bit of action to get people excited, but if I'm not given any context to what makes this situation possible, then I'm not simply going to be as invested. I'm just going to be constantly getting distracted. Now, it's important to understand that there are many other assets in making a video game trailer that sticks with the audience. One video that inspired me to dig deeper into this topic to make a video on it was by Nakey Jakey, who is, like me, a video game donkey clone.
Fact.
The video was called The Art of Video Game Commercials, where he breaks down 3 of the most important categories for setting your tone in your commercials. And 2 of those categories were humor and music. Trailers like the guy performing some stealth to avoid his boss to promote Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance, or just recently Apex Legends sugarcoating the amount of worldwide kills the worst gun in the game has, or Sony simply just showing you how used games will work for the PS4.
Thanks.
PlayStation.
For me, when a bit of humour is thrown in, it makes me feel more connected to the people behind the games I play, when they make me laugh. And there are many other trailers where the music is then the surefire winner. 7 Nation Army from Battlefield 1, Mad World for Gears of War, Country Roads for Fallout 76. It's hard to click off when there's a nice tune blowing in your ear that does a good job of running with the pacing of what's being shown on screen. With the right choice, music can set the tone right then and there. It can speak to the viewer in a way that helps them understand the state of the situation better. But here's the disadvantage. When one of these 2 elements is the start of a live action or CGI cinematic that isn't reminiscent of the final product, I have gone completely astray by the fact that I'm being sold a video game. I was way more invested in watching Jonah Hill grow in his gun skill next to Sam Worthington, rather than, at the time, thinking about picking up Modern Warfare 3. Fallout 4 is literally just a guy walking around different areas with his dog, and then he suits up at the end in a power armor. What sort of information am I supposed to take from that? But with a nice soothing track, And okay, yes, I can get through this, no bother. I was way more caught up in the Led Zeppelin Immigrant Song and the jokes from the Guardians than coming to terms with how everything shown on screen was going to play out in Destiny when it released. I found Neil Blomkamp's trailer for Anthem more engaging than the game itself could ever be, or rather could have been.
You backstabbing rat! You sold us out! I never should have trusted you!
In a commercial where everything you see on screen won't be there when you play the game for yourself, the video feels even more manipulative when the thing that makes the trailer shine isn't even material related to the story, universe, or characters. It's the catchy tunes, or the inside commentary, or the fact that Megan Fox was in it. The overall impression that I get from these type of exercises is that the marketing teams have taken desperate measures, bringing in things that people have a strong connection with, whether that would be any other form of art, celebrities, or culture, and attempt to use that in a way to promote their new product, rather than try and pass on what makes this particular game unique, or what fans who played the previous entries have come to love about them. Now, I do realise that perhaps I might have been a little inconsistent with my arguments and examples I've used in this video, and the question I'm sure a lot of you have been wanting me to answer is, if you don't like them, then how would I change them? And as pathetic as this might sound, they don't have to change at all. I think live action trailers have proven, like I mentioned earlier, that they can fascinate new players and honour long-time fans with some great insight on their latest product with some care and thought. Or maybe I've just been completely missing the point. Maybe live action trailers are just made for the fans, and if they are, then that just takes away everything I've been saying for the last 10 minutes or so. I could definitely look at, say, the Far Cry 3 experience or Nathan Fillion's Uncharted and recognise that that was for the fans. And as much nitpicking as I've been doing on these trailers, I've never watched one and later felt less excited for the game to release. But then again, my excitement has never really increased. I suppose it is though just my personal expectations, when the embargo is just about to lift. If it's a new Call of Duty, I would probably be interested in seeing a new map or some new weapons in action, or if they have made some changes to maybe progression or zombies. If it's a new Fallout game, I'd like to know more about the activities or side content or more context to the story within the open world, and let Todd explain me the secret of how all of it just works. However, I could probably do without the super cool flashy visuals that I know are just there to over exaggerate the entire experience that I potentially could be buying into.